This is episode 4 of the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm the founder of Angle and your host, Andrew. I am joined by my fellow Angle Fantasy Basketball analysts, Braxton and Mitchell. Today, we are here to do a mailbag episode. Before we start, just wanted to remind you, if you enjoy this podcast as well as our videos and articles, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We can be found on Twitter and YouTube, and the audio of our podcast is also available on Apple Music and Spotify. You can also visit our blog for our weekly buy-sell articles and newsletter. Check the link in the description for all of those below. Also for our Discord channel too. Boys, how's it going today?
It's pretty good.
All
I'm
right.
excited.
So, Brax, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good, man. The Hornets are I guess they're off the losing streak now. I was convinced they weren't ever going to win again up until last night. But other than that, just general sadness. Everything's going pretty well.
Well, I mean, hopefully you all had a happy holiday season as well, too. I know it is a bummer that the Hornets aren't doing too well, but hopefully you guys do get another good draft pick out of it. Hey, at least Brandon Miller is good. You know, you had a couple first round busts lately, but he's looking like a solid one at least. So that's a positive.
I still think back to Kupchak trading Jalen Duren for like 4 second-round picks.
Yeah, that was. I remember having my hands on my head on that time because I knew Duren was on the board, and as soon as I saw them trade out of it, I was like,
yeah, not ideal. They took Mark Williams in the same draft, obviously, but
yeah, that's true. But yeah, all right. Actually, we're going to cover those two players a little bit in one of our questions today. So a couple of weeks ago, we posted in our Discord channel that we're going to be doing a mailbag episode. So some of the members of the Angle Discord community sent us some questions related to both Dynasty and redraft basketball. So we are going to go through a few of those questions today. We're going to have a little bit of a system to this too. So we're going to do 2 minutes for each of us to answer one of the questions. And then at the end of the question, if somebody has something to add who is not responsible for that question, then they'll have about 30 seconds or so to add in any comments. So we are going to start it off here. We have one of our users, Worth, a popular one amongst us. He had a few questions for us, so let's start off with a question for Braxton here. All right, Braxton, does David Roddy have a good fantasy stat set? Feels like he might be a one category contributor sort of guy, maybe two. What are your thoughts on that?
So, the idea, at least in terms of like his fantasy stealing, is just a good glue guy to stick in your team. It doesn't really hurt you much of anywhere. The one category he's never really gonna shine in is assists. In college he was a little bit of a stocks guy with 1.2 steal. He's got over 1 steal and over 1 block his senior year per game, but hasn't really translated much to his professional career. I guess in my head the thinking is kind of a Trey Murphy light, but it's not really. The emergence of Vince Williams has really hurt him this season. He beat out Laravia like I anticipated coming into the year. But now he's seemingly fighting for minutes with John Conchar. The averages of I think it's 7.7 points, almost 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and then half a steal and almost half a block. Not ideal. The percentages aren't great either. He's really not just hitting his shots. I mean, the counting stats are there. But he's a worse defender than Vince Williams, and he's not seeing the floor as much as I had hoped on this somewhat healthier Grizzlies team. I do still like him as a low-end dynasty asset, and I think he's somebody to grab in deeper leagues if the Grizzlies get ravaged by injuries again, but he's definitely off any redraft radar right now, and he's having a hard time cracking minutes above 20. I guess to answer your question, he was never going to be like a star, unlikely to be like a top 100 guy anytime soon, but just really one of those guys that you can just stick in any build and he'll help you a little bit.
All right, very good. Mitch, did you have anything to add on Roddy?
Honestly, not really. I think Brax really bit the bullet there, and I mean, there's nothing else for me to say, so I don't really agree.
Yeah, you don't agree with
No,
him?
I don't agree with Roddy necessarily being a buy low or a low end dynasty asset.
Okay.
I would rather take a gamble on some other player that has a better per minute capability, at least on the defensive end.
Yeah, he really just needs to start hitting his shots. I mean, he's shooting under 30% from three. I think it's like 40% from the field. If he was up, or if he was hitting those shots, he'd be closer to like 10 or 11 points per game and 4 boards and some additional stocks and stuff like that should be able to help. But when I say low end, I mean, Mitch, you and I have talked about this a little bit, between 200 and 250, which in dynasty leagues that'll play depending on how deep your leagues are and how deep the benches are. But, there's lots of guys who have higher upside definitely on a night to night basis, even if Roddy was playing 20 plus minutes consistently. So.
All right, very good. All right, so let's move on to another question here from Worth. So I'll be doing this next one. So Worth asks, can Coby White be considered a top 50 asset, or do you guys expect some regression to level his production out? What he's doing right now is wild. Is it sustainable? So there is actually a good amount of people like amongst Dynasty that don't like Coby White, but I personally really liked him coming out of North Carolina. I know my brother liked him a lot too. I think part of what maybe turned some people off of Coby was the Bulls trying to become too good too fast. They made the Vucevic and DeRozan acquisitions during White's tenure. And there's also been some coaching issues too that stunted Coby's growth for a bit, especially in his third and fourth seasons. As the veteran Bulls core ages out, we are seeing Coby step back up to the role he had in his rookie and sophomore year when the Bulls were in the bottom of the East. However, Coby stepping up in the absence of veterans has seen his individual success become also a lot better in addition to the Bulls as a whole. So the Bulls have only lost 6 out of 16 games with Coby in a high usage role. Since this question was asked, though, Coby has seen some regression, ranking outside the top 200 over the last couple of weeks. So top 50 dynasty value would be a stretch. Last month, he was averaging 21, 6, and 5 with almost 3 threes per game. So that's top 100 value, or it was very close to it. I think it was like 103. And that's where I think his dynasty value is at least within the top 120 minimum. Coby is someone in the next update that is probably a more deserving of a top 100 spot than, say, a Cam Thomas would be, due to better peripheral stats and basically an equal ability for scoring. He's only 23, going on 24 next month. And I think the Bulls would be wise to focus on Coby after potentially getting rid of some of their vets. Any thoughts on Coby White, boys?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think I'm not nearly as high on Coby White as top 50, but I think because of his counting stats, he's going to be relevant in just about any fantasy season moving forward. I kind of think I kind of equate it to Spencer Dinwiddie, where he's going to kill you in field goal percentage. That's not Coby. That's Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie doesn't get any steals this year, and he's terrible in field goal percentage. But the counting stats are so high that he's not droppable in competitive 12-team leagues and deeper leagues. So he's definitely somebody that's going to be rostered, and in deeper dynasty leagues, he'll contribute more so than maybe somebody who is ranked higher than him, just on 9cat rankings.
Yeah, I do want to. Yeah, so I do want to add a little bit. I know salary leagues are very niche, but Coby White is on an excellent contract. I believe it's 3 years, $33 million starting this year. So the next 2 years, the next 2 years after this year, he's on a really budget-friendly deal. So while majority of the community probably doesn't play salary leagues, he does get a push in rankings maybe around the 70s mark.
Got it. Very good, boys. All right. So let's go ahead and answer Worth's last question. This one's going to go back to Braxton. Braxton, is Vince Williams a 20 to 25 minute per night player on a healthy Grizzlies team? How should we value him in Dynasty?
Yeah, I mean, he's been awesome in real life. I think he can play 20 minutes a night on this healthy Grizzlies team, just purely due to his defense. But he's going to need to start hitting some shots. I mean, he's got strong potential to be a really more of a real life guy than fantasy guy, if you know what I mean. Like, he's out there helping. But I don't know if the fantasy output is going to be there. I mean, he's got the nice out of position rebounds. But his averages, even with the hot start to the season he's only averaging just over 5 points a game, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and then like half a steal, half a block. He's shooting 37% from the field and 33 from three. And he's taking, he's taking some shots. That's not a low volume. I think for Taylor Jenkins right now, it's really offense versus defense between him, Roddy, and John Conchar. Taylor Jenkins is picking defense right now, but if Vince Williams doesn't start shooting above, and not that Roddy is knocking down his shots either, right? We just talked about this, but you can't, if it gets much worse, Taylor Jenkins might have to make a switch. Or excuse me, it'll be interesting to see if he cares enough about that shooting percentage to make a switch. And just to add, he's also on a two-way. They're gonna have to waive somebody to bring him up soon. Derrick Rose, I think, is a big candidate for that, but it's also possible, depending on if he's slumping or not, that they send him down to the G League for a little bit and kind of delay that decision in terms of who to waive, especially if the Grizzlies stay competitive, in their hopes of grabbing a play-in spot after that terrible start to the season. I think at his peak, I think he's a 25-minute guy. Yeah, definitely. If he's playing his best. If he's slumping, I think there's no room for him.
Very good. Anything to add on Vince Williams, Mitch?
Nope. I think Braxton hit it right on.
I agree with you as well. I mean, I will note that there's a few Dynasty players out there who I do trust with their rookie valuations. Shout out to the Jailblazers. I do recall him being high on Vince Williams initially too. It almost seemed like it wasn't going to work out, but now it is looking like it pretty much will. So glad to see that going on for him. All right, we're going to go to Mitch now. So Mitch, there's a question from Brian Dabble. Here's a good one. Is Victor Wembanyama the number 1 Dynasty asset?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've seen a lot of momentum from the outside analysts, from the community itself, shifting Wemby up to the number 1 spot, taking over Nikola Jokic. And personally, in my update in January that we're going to be pushing out soon, I am going to move him up from number 2 to number 1 over Jokic. And I think this goes in all formats, non-salary and salary leagues, obviously. And Wembanyama right now, he's 18th in 9cat as of today, scoring 19 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1.3 steals, 3.1 blocks, and 1.4 threes per game. So he's already averaging around 5 stocks a game, and he's only going to get better, right? Like, his efficiency is low, his points are low because he's not getting very many touches. They're playing without a point guard, and we all know what happened with the Sohan experiment. It was absolutely terrible. He has no pick and roll partner whatsoever. And after those 24 games with Sohan, I mean, can we guess how many assists Sohan had to Wembanyama? 13. Like, you can literally count that almost on your fingers. And what's interesting is another stat that I found. Wemby has more passes and assists to Sohan than Sohan has passes and assists to Wemby. And Sohan being the point guard at the time. But things are looking up. And the next year in 2024, the Spurs have potentially 2 lottery picks where they can take maybe Reed Shepherd, someone I'm personally high on from Kentucky, or from their own pick, top 3, probably Nikola Topic, who's playing right now in the EuroLeague.
All right, Brax, anything to add on Victor Wembanyama as the number 1 Dynasty asset?
I have a really hard time, even with how he's been performing, at sticking him over Jokic until further notice. I mean, man, it's so tough. It's almost like a 1A, 1B situation for me. In salary leagues, I definitely give the edge to Wemby right now, and some people had that even before the season. But I don't know. Jokic can almost win you matchups by himself if you're in a deep enough league. I just have such a hard. It's like a 1A, 1B thing. Like I said, I don't disagree with having him there at 1, but I don't think it's a definite he's surpassed Jokic.
You kind of stole my answer. I would also agree that they're like, it's so hard to choose, especially when we're approaching that top 4, because obviously Luka is still really good too, even with what he seems to be a little bit hobbled this year and is still capable of going absolutely insane. And then Shea's putting up MVP numbers too. Like, it's not absolutely insane to, have him up there with those types of guys, especially with the amount of steals he's putting out right now, too. So it's almost like a 1A, 1B, 1C type of thing. There's so many good players that are at the top of dynasty lists right now. All right. Let's see here. Let's go back to Mitch again. Mitch, we got a question from one of our favorites, Phil248. Mitch, what is your favorite build for 9 category leagues? Is it smart to take bigs early? So this is a two-parter.
Yeah, great question, Phil. So personally, my favorite build is punt free throws and turnovers. Later on in the draft, especially on the back end, once all the efficient players are gone, there is that tendency to kind of hyperfixate on those type of stats, taking players like Trey Murphy a little bit earlier, right? But however, there's a lot of value in the later rounds. Someone like CJ McCollum and Terry Rozier kind of flew under the radar, falling under, I think, the top 75 picks in most drafts, but they are returning top 30 or 50 value as of now. Granted, the Pelicans are never really healthy, but we knew that coming in. LaMelo Ball, he's not healthy either, but he's only played, I think, one season over 55 games. So there's a lot of value that can be taken at the back end of the draft if you look at those punt free throw turnovers. I do want to say on Phil's second question, it really depends on the year, right? So if you're looking solely at big man stats, you should want to take players like Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo because they have that boosted points per game and out of position assists that you may not find later on. But later on in the draft, you can find steals in like the 60s range. Alperen Şengün, he's killing his ADP right now. Jarrett Allen with the Evan Mobley situation, he's going like, I think like 20 and 18 game or 20 points and like 18 rebounds lately. Yusuf Nurkic passed the 100 point mark on the ADP. Mark Williams, Jalen Duren, but every year is different. And like the last year, I know that the big man stats were very scarce, but we kind of just have to adapt and pivot with what we have in the incoming year.
Rex, anything to add on that one?
Andrew, I'm sure you're very glad to see those stat lines Jared Allen's been putting up the past few games. He looks like Jokic out there. It's crazy. These assists are coming out of nowhere. Just real quick, I wanted to add kind of to I saw some stats, something like 75% of winning teams punt turnovers, of the teams that win championships, that is. I've found myself kind of just ignoring efficiency stats altogether, and really looking for just like a wide array of counting stats, guys. And it seems to kind of just fall in line. You know, if you get all these guys who can do a little bit of everything, it seems to usually win me matchups. So I'm kind of straying away from any kind of efficiency stats.
Got it. And I'll add to that too. So, in regards to a favorite build for 9 category leagues, Phil, my favorite is punt steals, actually. So I think we are currently in one of the best eras that we've ever been in for big men. So there are some bigs who either weren't as in a prominent of a role or not in the NBA at all last year that are now here. We have Derek Lively now, Jalen Duren, Mark Williams is here. Nick Claxton's in a bigger role now. Obviously, there's still the stalwarts. Brooke Lopez is still here. Clint Capella is still around. But it's not, you don't have to scramble to grab Miles Turner in the, upper third or upper 20s or something like that just because you want to win blocks. Braxton, this is a question that came in from T Choi. We're going to all kind of jump in on this one too. Why does Angle underrate Cam Thomas as a dynasty asset?
I think the timing of this question is kind of funny because it seems like he's trending towards a drop in redraft leagues over the last few games he has. This is something we've talked about before with the one-dimensional fantasy output. If he's not hitting his shots, he's really not doing anything else for you. Sure, he's not a negative in turnovers or free throw or steals or whatever it is, right? But he's not doing enough to where if he's not scoring 20 points a game, he's not doing anything for you. I mean, what good is having 8 points, one rebound, and 2 assists, right, on like 4 or 14 shooting? If this, the upside for him is purely in points, and I almost kind of compare him to Bojan, where and people don't look at Bojan the same way, maybe just because he's older, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it in terms of a fantasy skill set still.
Yep, I would agree with that. It's just not enough peripheral stats. Like I said earlier, I would rather have somebody like Kobe White who can provide those peripheral stats. And also too, the Nets suck. There's really not that much of a chance that this type of roster and core is going to stay together. And if Cam Thomas does either get traded or get drafted over, or someone else gets brought in to play over him, then that takes away almost all the value that he currently has. So, Mitch, anything to add on Cam Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last 4 games he lost his starting spot to, I think it's Dorian Finney-Smith, and
Yeah.
it's trending down. Yeah, like the minutes are trending down. He lost his starting spot, and just today we've seen the news that he's on the trade block, so not looking good.
Yep, very true. All right. We're going to go back to another question from Phil. So we actually have a college basketball question to answer. All right. Why does USC basketball suck so bad despite having Boogie Ellis, Isaiah Collier, and I added this into Bronny James? So, Phil, the reason why USC basketball sucks so bad, for starters, the lack of peripheral talent. They're starting dudes like DJ Rodman, who's one of the worst basketball players I've ever watched. There's some issues that I kind of had that I noticed at the game that Mitch and I went to, the UC Irvine game. There's some issues that I had with the coaching too. The offense is really just completely stagnated, which that was due to Boogie Ellis being out, who's a great scorer. But I just think there's just too much isolation. There's not enough team ball, which is what the principal part of NCAA is. The teams that go the farthest in the tournament are the ones that play the best team basketball. Obviously, that happens in the NBA too, but it just looks like a team of individuals. Also, Isaiah Collier is starting to slip on draft boards. He might not be as good as everybody thought. Yes, he was the #1 recruit out of high school, but so was Austin Rivers. So was Shabazz Muhammad. So #1 recruit out of high school does not mean that much. So he is still either in the lottery or sort of near the lottery on a lot of big boards, but he is slipping down. It doesn't look like he's able to carry USC as far as they need to go. I mean, we've seen some stars like, Oklahoma State wasn't that great when Cade was there, but Cade did still get his own, and it looks like Collier's not really doing that. Boys, anything to add on USC if you've been paying attention to them at all?
Yes, Andrew. I know you mentioned Cade, but Cade did actually bring Oklahoma State to the Sweet 16 as a
Right.
4 seed. With USC, I honestly doubt they make the NCAA tournament. And I think that's just something that really says a lot about the caliber of player that Isaiah Collier is as a potential lottery pick and a cornerstone. Isaiah Collier, man, I don't think he's very good. Honestly, had my skepticism with Andrew. How are you gonna draft someone who's gonna be your franchise point guard who averages more turnovers than assists? That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I love how recent draft boards are trending towards Nikola Topic and Reed Shepherd as point guards. I know that's unrelated, but I had to say that.
I mean, also related to that too, it bums me out that the other game we went to, the G League Ignite game, we're starting to see buzz of Matas Buzelis as #1. So we didn't get to see him, unfortunately. He was in street clothes for that one. But moving on now. So this next one's from Mitch. We're going to get one more question in from Phil. Mitch, is Russell Westbrook the glue for the Clippers?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So ever since the Harden trade, the first 5 games, I think they lost almost all of them. But a lot of it was because of the fit. Russell Westbrook really took accountability and a lot of self-reflection. And as a leader, he kind of realized this isn't the best kind of fit for the Clippers. Harden plays better with the ball in his hands, so does he. So he took it upon himself to come off the bench. And ever since then, Harden has really flourished. He's had great chemistry with Zubac, and really has unlocked Paul George's game as well. Kawhi's always going to do his thing. Russ is getting those second chance rebounds on the offensive glass. He's the motor. He's pretty much what you want a prototypical 6-man to do. Bring energy off the bench, make some hustle plays, and really excite and electrify the crowd. And ever since that, the Clippers are honestly championship contenders. And Westbrook coming off the bench really is I want to say the real purpose of that. And it's his leadership. So I do love Russell Westbrook for that. And I think they do have championship aspirations in the near future.
Braxton, anything to add on Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, just to tie it into fantasy a little bit, his minutes are down a little bit. So the assists aren't really there the way that you would hope, but the rebounds are still there, even in like 18 minutes a night. And he's got upside, probably higher upside than anybody else on the waiver wire when one of Paul George or Kawhi sits. I still think he's a nice low end hold for certain builds. Definitely droppable if you know you're pretty stacked and there's somebody nice on the wire, but like I said, he's got upside higher than almost anybody else you're going to find on the waiver wire night to night. So I definitely don't think he's like a completely dead asset or anything in terms of fantasy.
Yeah,
not that anybody here was saying he was, but
right. And one thing that's not necessarily fantasy related, it's just it seems like the Clippers have a good culture going on in their locker room. We have Westbrook being willing and able to take a step back in order to help Harden mesh better into the team. And then just today we saw Mason Plumlee volunteering to, basically sit back to let Daniel Tice get his time in because the Clippers are on a good run right now and he doesn't want to mess anything up. So definitely looks like the Clippers have got a good culture going on in that locker room. All right. Going on to another question here. So we got a question that came in from Car Magic. So are we valuing Jalen Suggs over Jalen Green in standard 9-cat dynasty leagues now? So Car Magic, if you were to go check our currently posted dynasty rankings, those were as recent as November. We are planning to do a new update later on this month. You will see that I actually do currently have Jalen Suggs over Jalen Green. I'm not sure if the other two do or not. I didn't check on that, but I currently do. So I am very comfortable with saying, yes, I do value Jalen Suggs over Jalen Green. I know Jalen Green does get a lot of points per game, but Jalen Suggs is a better 9-category fantasy player, even while playing less minutes per night. Also, just another side note, my next video is going to also be on every analyst's favorite player, which is on Jalen Suggs. So be on the lookout for that one. I mean, guys, I swear any tweets or videos we put out that have to do with Jalen Suggs are usually the ones that gain the most traction. So Mitch, anything to add on Jalen Suggs?
Yeah, that was a mistake to have Jalen Green above Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs is proving to be a winning player. He's a pit bull on defense. He is the perfect side piece really for Franz and Banchero. He doesn't need the ball in his hands. His efficiency from the three-point line has gone up. He's also capable of leading the fast break with the speed, even on the passing lane. So Jalen Suggs is, I think, a better asset than Jalen Green, even though Jalen Green does have that flashy scoring upside. But 9-category leagues are 9-category leagues for a reason. It's not just one category in points.
Rex, anything to add on Suggs over Green?
Yeah, I don't think I currently have, in those rankings from November, I think Green is above Suggs, but that's something that's going to be changing in my next rankings. The steal rate for Suggs is astronomical. I mean, you just don't see anything like that from Jalen Green. Like Mitch said, the points are there, right? But what else is there? From Suggs, I would like to see more assists. Obviously, it's going to be difficult with the ball being in so many different guys' hands at different points. But he's turning into really a nice punt assists guard, with that steal rate in the 3-point, the efficiency from 3-point line. I mean, the scoring is there, the threes are there, the steals are there. That's all you need from a punt assist guard. So,
all right, very good. All right, let's see. I'm going to do another one here. So this is a question from JB. Who is your favorite for a post-Christmas rookie breakout? So JB, this is an easy one. That is going to be Scoot Sterling Henderson. So Scoot Henderson is already showing signs of settling in recently, averaging 21 points and 7 assists per game last week. And now he has the rest of this season to keep the ball rolling. So I'm going to keep this one brief. I strongly expect at least 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know if it's going to be consecutive, but at least 3 to 4 weeks worth of Scoot within the top 75 9 category rankings at some point during the rest of this season. Braxton, anything to add on Scoot? Or any other post-Christmas rookie breakouts that you have in mind?
I'll just add to Scoot. I think it's nice to see him look like an actual NBA player. I don't want him to hide or be too much in the shadow of Brandon Miller moving forward. So it's nice to see him actually look competent out there.
Mitch, anything for Scoot or any other post-Christmas rookie breakout shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, I'd like to give one shout out on one of the players I was personally high on, Amen Thompson. With, I believe, Dylan Brooks without a timetable to return, Amen Thompson has been able to crack the rotation, and he's playing around 15 or so minutes a game. He had a pretty nice game today. I think he had 11 points, 6 rebounds, and a steal or so. So look into him moving forward. He is a very fantasy-friendly player with high steals, high assist potentially in 2-3 years when Fred VanVleet is phased out.
I'll add something on Amen Thompson. If we're talking redraft, something working against his favor is the Rockets being competitive. I do agree when VanVleet is gone, he's gonna pop off if his trajectory continues to point upwards. But in terms of a redraft post Christmas breakout, I don't know if that's there for him this year. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with what you're saying. I just want to make the distinction from redraft to dynasty there.
Yeah, good point. I know this question was kind of poised towards redraft, but I just wanted to give a little insight to the future.
All right, very good. All right, so we're going to go back to you, Mitch. So this is a question coming in from Joy. Shout out to Australia. Joy's question is, who is poised for a massive breakout, who is currently outside of your top 100 for next season?
So outside of my top 100, this is why I wore the jersey. I was a little too low on Jaime Jaquez in my November rankings, but what we're seeing here is probably the I want to say the baseline, really. Like, he's a rookie. He's only going to improve as he gets more exposure to the NBA. Jimmy Butler is 35, going on the wrong side of in the 30s. So like, we can potentially see Jaime Jaquez as a 25-5 player in his prime with really high efficiency numbers and low turnovers. Another player I'd like to highlight outside of my top 100, Emmanuel Quickley with the Toronto trade. Emmanuel Quickley can become a starting level player. His baseline was always a 6-man of the year candidate, but now he's able to really showcase his skill set playing alongside Scotty Barnes. He's a real flamethrower, and he's actually a pretty good defender despite his size. He has some length to him. He can get some good steal numbers for you as well. So in his prime, I could see him as a potential top 60, top 50 asset. Another one I'd like to highlight, it's a little bit similar. Cole Anthony, he's not in a really great situation right now in Orlando, but not too long ago, 1 to 2 years, in previous times, he was a top 50, 75 player before Paulo Banchero and before Markelle Fultz was healthy and whatnot. So the numbers are there. He's a high rebounding guard. Now that they added Anthony Black. So hopefully he's a potential trade candidate as Orlando tries to kind of flesh out their rotation on the guard spot. And last but not least, Taylor Hendricks. Utah is looking to move forward from Lauri Markkanen potentially and John Collins. So Taylor Hendricks is a great 3-and-D prospect. Think of Jaden McDaniels on steroids.
Very good. Brax, anything to add on any of the players that Mitch covered, or any of your own favorite outside top 100 guys that you think are going to break out next season?
I love the take on Jaime Jaquez. I think sometimes people overlook the fact that Miami is never healthy. I mean, this is kind of why we saw Tyler Hero fall in redraft this year. It's why he's a little bit undervalued in Dynasty. I mean, he's getting insane usage in the games that he's been healthy this year, putting up some crazy stat lines. And Lowry will be gone soon. That should, get the ball maybe in Jaime's hands a little bit more moving forward. So I think that's definitely not unrealistic to see him put up, numbers similar to what Tyler Hero is doing right now.
Yeah, and I'll have another agreement with Mitch. I love the take on Emmanuel quickly. I've been high on quickly for a while, but waiting for him to kind of either get moved upwards more in the Knicks rotation, which probably wasn't going to happen with Jalen Brunson and everyone else that's been around. They actually got more crowded over the offseason. So a trade seemed to be the best way to get that done. So over in Toronto, especially with Scotty Barnes, I think that's a good pairing. And I'm excited to see what quickly is going to continue to bring moving forward. All right, so let's do another question from Joy. This one's for you, Brax. Who are under the radar guys you like from the 2023 draft class?
So these are a little bit deeper cuts for some people. The first guy I like is Julian Strawther. He's already in the rotation for Denver. He's the perfect archetype of the kind of guy you want to surround Jokic with. He's had a couple outbursts of 20-point games. Some people there was some concern about his defense, but and some people think he can get played off the floor at times. But the Nuggets seem to be have enough faith in him and confidence in him at this point to at least leave him out there for some minutes on a championship contending team. And whether or not that's through necessity of the alternative being Justin Holiday, that's neither here nor there. They're not going to bring in really any other big fish. It seems like this is the core they have is the core they're going to roll with. And I think Strawther can be a nice role player for them. Another one is Bryce Sensabaugh. This one is more about opportunity. He hasn't played much to start this season. But Utah seems like a team most primed for some silly season output at the end of the year. He's a small forward, but due to Utah's team composition of like just guards and bigs, people really standing in his way are Kelly Olynyk, John Collins, and Fontecchio, who all seem like potential trade candidates. They've already talked about moving Collins, about how they're frustrated with him. And Fontecchio, not really necessarily a trade candidate. Maybe he's somebody that sticks around at least for another season. But in the G League, he's shooting almost 40% from three. That's Sensabaugh. He's mainly a scorer, which is kind of the role that's occupied by Fontecchio right now. And I see no reason if the Utah heads into silly season late in the year, meaning a lot of their players are either resting or injured, with quotes. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to do that. I do want to give an honorable mention to Olivier Maxence Prosper, purely on the potential of the Mavs making some kind of weird consolidation move that they can't afford to do for like Pascal Siakam. I'm not going to get like into the stats or anything, but he is somebody that is going to play if they trade all their depth away. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well.
I like that one. Another one I'll add, I'll actually take it over to your team. So you mentioned something about silly season earlier. I think as the Hornets potentially get into silly season too, someone who's kind of still under the radar to look out for would be Nick Smith. So Mitch can attest to this. Even as back as last year, I was kind of hyping up. Oh wow, Arkansas landed two 5-star prospects, one of which was Anthony Black, the other of which was Nick Smith. So I tried to follow them a bit through college last season and in through the draft. I know not everybody is super high on Nick Smith, but he is starting to show some signs of life as well as figuring out the scoring a little bit. So that's one under the radar guy I want to kind of keep an eye on. Mitch, did you have any under the radar guys that you are looking at, or anybody that Brax mentioned who you agree with?
I do agree with the Julian Strawther take. He kind of resembles Michael Porter Jr., an efficient three-point scorer that moves off the ball. He knows how to play fast pace, kind of growing up in that Gonzaga offense. So he knows how to play off the ball. And I think he'll be a really effective threat once they kind of phase out from Michael Porter Jr.'s salary. Another one I want to mention is Anthony Black. Once they kind of clear off from Fultz, which I believe could happen with all these injury concerns, and Cole Anthony with his upcoming extension, I think Anthony Black is a buy. I know right now he's not really pulling up the stats you want in a starting role, but he's only a rookie. He's only a teenager. He's not even 20 years old. So look into him. He was a top 6 pick. He has high steal numbers. He can get assists, and he has the length. When do we ever come across bust players who are like 6-7 point guards? You can't really find many. So it's something to really consider in the long term, and a really good dynasty buy low right now.
All right, very good. All right, so on to the last question. This one is from P. How high are we on Derek Lively, For redraft and dynasty 9 category, for redraft, is he better than Jakob Poeltl, Mark Williams, or Jalen Duren? So for 9-cat dynasty, Derek Lively is comfortably in the top 100. I have him around the 80s right now, I believe. The Mavericks absolutely love him, and I'm thinking about probably moving his rank up a little bit with the next update. He's a great fit with Luka, and that partnership should flourish even more as Lively gains more experience. For Dynasty, a starting rookie center on the 7th seed in the West is a pretty damn good asset to have. Now let's talk about redraft here. Lively being a rookie makes him a bit volatile. He's worth a hold for 9-cat builds that need the stats he provides, such as field goal percentage, rebounds, and blocks. If those are not crucial to your build, then he can likely be a streamer. So he is kind of a tweener in that regard. On the season as a whole for 9-cat, he does provide late round value. Jalen Duren is for sure better than Lively in both redraft and dynasty, pretty far above him, honestly. As of now in redraft, I would rather have Lively than Mark Williams, but that's only because Williams is injured with no real timetable to return. When healthy, Williams has better value as of now in redraft. For dynasty, I would consider Lively and Williams fairly similar, maybe with Williams slightly above. Poeltl is currently better 9-cat ranked player than Lively. If the Raptors do end up getting another big, such as Claxton, which was a new rumor today, that'd screw Poeltl over big time, but I'm not sure if there is any credibility to that rumor today. Mitch, do you have anything to add on Derek Lively?
No, not really. I think he's a great player. He's definitely a top 80-ish asset in dynasty leagues, and he's going to be a double-double machine for years to come. I do want to say there is some potential upside for him to overcome Jalen Duren and Mark Williams because of his switchability. He's a lot more mobile than those guys defending on the perimeter. Kind of think of Clint Capella and how he was able to guard Steph Curry in spurts in the playoffs. So I do love Derek Lively as a switchable big man who is also a really great lob threat and can stack up blocks pretty quickly.
Very good. Brax, anything to add on Lively?
Yeah, something working in his favor, and this kind of goes back to my Omax honorable mention. It's just how thin the Mavs can be on nights when they're missing literally any player. I mean, his competition is Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber whenever he gets healthy again. It seems like they have no interest in playing Rashawn Holmes. Lively is going to start. He's going to play as many minutes as he can handle, and that's going to translate both to redraft success and dynasty success. Even outside of his stat profile. Somebody who plays that much is usually going to put up some numbers.
Thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in today. Thank you, Braxton and Mitchell, for helping me out with this mailbag episode. Also, shout out to all the server members who contributed with their questions for today. Next time we do a mailbag, we'll probably open it up to Twitter so we can get questions from a broader audience, as well as potentially some other analysts too. But we always want to give priority to the server. Once again, be sure to check the links in the description down below for all of our social media and all of our content. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.